Good afternoon. Today we are reporting from the State of Open Conference 2025. I have Andrew Auld, our Commercial Director. I have Martin Renvoisi, great, Head of Development and Community Engagement, and me, Lauren Purton, Marketing Executive. So first question I have is just a brief one on what your top highlights and innovations have been from the last 2 days.
Well, I guess for me, it's the highlight for me has been learning how little I can fit into my brain in 2 days, because this is a full-on conference. There's been lots of very interesting topics. We've met loads of very interesting people, and you consume all of this over 2 days, and it's really, this is the end of day two, towards the end of day two, and I think we're all feeling a little bit like our brains need a rest. But nonetheless, we've seen some fantastic talks, and we've had some great discussions with people in the sponsors area. And for me, I guess particular highlights have been just getting a better understanding of how important in the world open source technology is, the extent to which it is basically running most of the internet, and is heavily embedded into most government services, and is so important really to tech everywhere in the world.
Yeah, as the geek in the room, I've really enjoyed talking to other developers and understanding the importance and relevance of AI in our growing areas. I've enjoyed talking to the guys from OpenSearch, so I'm looking forward to learning more about OpenSearch and how we might migrate from Elasticsearch into the OpenSearch area.
Must be nice to not be the only geek in the room when we come to these kinds of conferences as well.
I mean, Martin's mentioned a topic that's been has direct relevance to Koha. Another interesting talk we had was about the move towards open government, and within that, the formation of the government digital service. And there are a number of different tools within the government digital service that are already in place, such as Pay and Notify. Certainly Notify, we already have an integration with Koha. Pay, we think there's already an integration with Koha. And then another one that was mentioned was Caddy, which is a chat service. And that's also of interest to look at for our libraries that can connect to government services, to see if that's something we can integrate to Koha and the other systems we support. So there's been quite a lot of technologies that we've learned about that might bring benefits very soon to our libraries.
And from some of the conversations that I've been overhearing, there seems to be new challenges facing open source. Can you give us an overview of these?
Yeah, well, I mentioned as I was talking about how important open source technology is to the world, and how much of the world's technical infrastructure open source now supports. And that very fact has brought with it new challenges. So challenges of regulation, challenges of maintenance, when a massive percentage of the internet is run on open source technology. Who's out there doing the maintenance, and how is that being funded and paid for? The European Union has recently been working on new legislation around cybersecurity. And open source projects are finding that they're having to find homes within foundations or under stewardship that means that they can meet those regulations. And for us in the Koha community, we're obviously considering right now moving Koha towards a foundation. So there's a consideration for us there in terms of making sure that that foundation and the stewardship provided by that foundation fits with that emerging regulation and legislation.
Yeah, there's been quite a theme on compliance and regulation for the conference.
And the conference today has had kind of global perspectives, and we've looked across industries. How's this relating back to libraries, which hasn't been a big part of the conversation so far today, other than a lot of the questions that Andrew's been sharing? How is this relating back to what we're doing? What similarities are you seeing? What differences are you seeing?
I think it's interesting that everybody's having the same sort of challenges in working out where the new technologies are going, the mass increase of interest of artificial intelligence and how we can use that, utilize that in the different industries that we're all working in. And I think that's an important question we need to be asking ourselves in libraries, and it's certainly one we've not really got an answer for as such yet.
One of the big topics at the conference in relation to AI has been about how the open source community gains access to what have hitherto been privately developed large language models that have constraints of access around them because of how they've been developed and the money that's been put into developing them. The open source community would like to, it can't afford to go through the whole process of building those large language models as a community. And so there's a big debate about gaining access to those existing large language models and then using those to further drive AI benefits in the open source context. I guess from a library's perspective, there's been the concern in libraries and information professionals around how AI and large language models are already challenging the rights of authorship, of creativity, and it's an interesting dilemma or contradiction between the open source community wanting that free access to private structures and data, and the concerns and conflicts that are in the information profession about not losing the protections afforded by copyright and creativity and creative ownership.
And we've spoken about a few of the foundations and sponsors and people that we've spoken to. Are there any others that you want to discuss? I know there's been conversations around sustainability, accessibility, engagement. Do you want to just give us an overview of some of the conversations of people and foundations you've spoken to around that?
So I particularly enjoyed talking to a group called Chaos, they're doing analytics based on assessing the health of open source communities and open source projects. It's quite an interesting project, and I'm kind of looking forward to investigating that a bit more deeply.
Yeah, I mean, we're working very closely in 2 open source communities projects, and leveraging the tools that Chaos might have to work on the health of our communities, not saying they're unhealthy, but to understand the health of our communities and
yes, that understanding, I think
the levers that affect the health of our communities is going to be interesting. I spoke to somebody about green hosting. So we're obviously a company that provides hosting services, and there are organizations out there, and I had a brilliant conversation about the sort of hosting that can heat swimming pools and push the wasted energy of server farms into things like that. So that was really good to see. And there was one more that I'd forgotten about.
Conversations with the Digital Poverty Alliance.
That was it.
Very interesting as well.
I've been on a bit of a soapbox as well this afternoon because, and this is, really, really relevant to libraries. The Digital Poverty Alliance were here and have been talking about digital poverty, and specifically they gave a presentation about open roaming, the idea of providing networks or access points for people who don't have access to good connectivity to the internet, to have that freely available to them wherever they are in their home communities. I had some really useful subsequent conversations with the keynote speaker about how libraries already form part of that network and what more can be done to push the benefits of that network into communities, the awareness of such provision, and just making it more widely available for people. And libraries do that already, but can do even more. We'll look forward to, maybe there's a technological way we can leverage with the work we do to support that. I love that.
Super. I think it's fair to say there's a lot on our mind this Wednesday. we're going to be digesting it more over the next few days as well, so there'll be plenty more that comes up. But Martin and Andrew, could you just each give me a single soundbite about the State of OpenCon Conference 2025 for us to finish on?
We volunteered as well. Lauren and I volunteered, and I would say for me, the mixture of helping and also consuming and enjoying the content has been really good.
No, I've been the consumer in the room, so I've been finding my brain filled up. So I think I'm going to be digesting and doing more posts about it. So digesting.
And there's a birthday going on, so you know this is a great place to be.
Thank you very much.